Hello and welcome to the 2015 State of Black America web series. I'm your moderator, Shannon Lanier. Every year, the National Urban League releases its highly anticipated report on the state of Black America. The report has become the national touchstone for social and economic status of African American and Hispanic communities. Now, this year's report, Save Our Cities, Education, Jobs, and Justice, addresses the crisis facing African Americans and other communities of color in education, employment, and justice. Now, each year we ask the same question: what is the state of Black America? Today, our esteemed panelists discuss Black images and their representation in the media and entertainment, and why diversity is so important in shaping and telling our story. Joining me for this conversation are Bevy Smith, host of Bravo's Fashion Queens; George Curry, editor-in-chief of the National Newspaper Publishers Association News Service; and Shante Bacon, founder and CEO of the 135th Street Agency. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you for having us.
All right, so we have to start off with the Oscars. A few weeks ago, they received a lot of flack because for the second time since 1998, there were no actors of color in any of the major actor categories. Why do you all think this happened?
Well, you know, Cheryl Boone Isaacs is running actually the Academy now, which is a big deal because she's a Black woman. And, you know, last year was her first year doing that, and we had a banner year last year at the Oscars as Black people. You know, there's so many complexities that go into that, but a lot of it had to do with the fact that, you know, it takes a lot to promote an Oscar-worthy film. And while Selma, we all agree, I think, it should have been, you know, up there for, you know, David's performance and, you know, so many people, great actors in that film, there were talks of, you know, the screeners, which are the films that the Academy gets to receive at home, went out late. That a lot of people didn't actually have a chance to see Selma until after the voting was over and different things like that. So I think there's a lot of different, you know, conversations that go on behind the scenes that a lot of times we're just not privy to.
I also think that it goes to a larger problem. That is, there's not enough movies that have diverse characters. And we saw a study a couple of weeks ago, as a matter of fact, where they say these are the box office that do better when you have diverse characters, but we do not get good representation of us other than the hoods and the thugs and the criminals. And we have so many different variations.
So what can we do to get more people of color in these films?
I mean, I think that right now is a great time for filmmakers and actors and actresses who are in films. I think that we've made great strides in terms of diversity. I just think that we're not there yet. I mean, Cheryl Boone Isaacs being the president of the Academy, a lot of people don't understand how big that is. She is president of the Academy. So I don't think that...
And she's a former publicist.
And she's a former publicist, and she's actually chair of their PR committee. Yeah. So, you know, that's huge. Now, could they have done better in terms of more diverse nominations for actors and actresses? Absolutely. Because for me personally, I do think that there is a disproportionate amount of films out there that represent us as thugs and all of that. But my other issue is that I want to see films that are created by filmmakers and actors of color that are celebrated that don't have anything to do with slavery. I just have to,
right,
I need
yeah.
that.
I understand.
I really
that
can't. I
right?
can't. Like, I mean, not one more.
Yeah.
And that's no disrespect. 12 Years a Slave deserved that award. The Help deserved the actual attention that it got. But I need to see us doing other things than thugging or being a slave. There's more parts to us.
Yeah.
I mean, I am a multi-layered individual. Bevy is, George is, you are. There are different parts of our lives that can be portrayed on camera.
I just went out to Sundance. I go out every year, actually, and there are a lot of good films coming down the pike that are small, independent films. So maybe for 2015, you know, well, for 2016 Oscars, we'll have a really great kind of cachet of great films that we can be talking about and actors that we'll see nominated. But yeah, it was a disappointing thing, and I think that the ratings of the Oscars prove that, you know, once you don't have films that people have really ever seen, because let's keep it real, even the films that were nominated were very small little films and that people had never seen. The only one that really actually made hundreds of millions of dollars was American Sniper. And there was so much controversy around that it's kind of got washed away. But all the other films that really won, no one had ever seen. So that's also a problem.
And I also think that there's a larger problem of Hollywood not having a lot of diversity, because the Academy only has a little over 6,000 people, and a majority of them are older white men. So we need to become involved in that aspect aspect of the organization, but in order for us to have more diversity in the nomination.
They did a big push. Actually, they let a lot of African Americans into the Academy actually for 2014. So I think maybe there was like maybe 15 new Academy members that were actually people of color, African Americans. So, you know.
I was going to say, I just think that to George's point earlier, it's also just a content issue in terms of the amount of content that we have out there. Because if we don't have more, then there's always going to be, you know, someone could counter my point about the fact that you don't want to see any more films about slavery with, well, we need to see more films, period. And, you know, there's certain, if we have more to pick from, then that will make a difference. And I think we'll start to see that the effects of that. You know, 30 years ago, we didn't have many African-American successful filmmakers, and now we have Ava and Will Packer and Tyler Perry and Spike Lee and I'm spazzing on the person who I wanted to bring up just now, but it doesn't, you understand where I'm going with that. Like, we just need more content.
And I submit to you that we do have content, that we do have proposals, but they never get greenlight. They never get to the screen.
The budgets.
It's not like we don't have the talent, like we don't have the ability, or we don't have the resources. We have all that. And we also prove we make money. See, we had this conversation a year ago saying, oh, look at the great black films out there. They prove they make money. Hollywood will see the difference. They will change. It has not.
Yeah, well, a lot of things are getting greenlit on television. You have Empire, Shondaland, Thursday's big night, Blackish, and of course, Fashion Queens. So is there a problem on television with the lack of diversity?
I think that there's definitely room for improvement, but what I will say is, as you've seen on TV for women and with people of color, they're much more welcoming because TV is a really kind of strict business model, right? So, I mean, they understand that the ratings are a direct correlation to what they can get from the advertising. So, you know, with a film, they've already paid for it, and then they have to hope to recoup. But with TV, it's like instant. You know, it comes on that week, and then they can go out and sell it and get the advertising dollars immediately. So I think that's the reason why you're seeing more diversity in television versus in film. But yes, there's still a long way to go. But I am happy to see Blackish. I want Black, but I hate that Blackish is up against Empire.
Right.
Because that splits the audience.
I feel you.
I hate that. You know, but I'm loving the Shondaland Powerhouse. You know, I even like Fresh Off the Boat. I think when we're talking about, and I know this is about African Americans specifically, but I think that it really resonates with the country when you see diversity as a whole, not just a slot.
I think we see far more on TV, but I still would like to see a lot more variety on TV.
I agree. I think that TV is outpacing film in terms of strides in diversity. I mean, when you can go through from Monday through Friday and you've got Being Mary Jane and you've got Blackish and Empire and then Shondaland, I think that is something to be celebrated. I don't always want to be the person saying, oh, we need more, but, you know, we do. But, you know, let's celebrate what is out there. I think that that's great. I also think that to Bevy's point, I think that because black women are such big drivers of TV, that you're going to continue to see more of that. And one thing that I'm especially ecstatic about is that it's a return of great scripted content again. Because I mean, I'm not one of the people who pass judgment on reality TV, but I would like a balance.
So let's go there.
They could be great reality TV,
Well, let's talk
but they
about
could be great scripted programming as well.
A lot of people hate the images that we are portrayed as on reality TV. How do you all feel about some of those reality shows?
I don't watch reality TV. I'm not a fan of it. You know, my co-host actually come from the reality TV world where they were, you know, kind of minor characters on the show. But personally, I've been offered a myriad of reality shows, and I've always turned them down. I always tell people, you know, Lolly and Smitty did not raise me to air my dirty laundry on television. So, you know,
All right.
You know, I
pass
don't,
on the check.
Okay.
I don't watch it either. But you know, it would be easier to watch if you had some other alternative. And if you're going to have the whole spectrum there, I said, fine, you have that along with everything else. But don't just give us that.
Okay. And you don't tell me you don't watch it either now.
No, I'm
Everybody.
going to be honest with you.
Okay.
A lot of people never believe this because I am on the back end and I work a lot of reality TV, but I don't necessarily watch it. So I'm not the person who's running to my TV every week like, oh my God, what time is Love and Hip Hop or Braxton's or whatever coming on? I'm not that person. Usually it'll be someone off my staff who says, no, you have to see this. And then they'll come and literally take my remote and put it on in my office or, you know, put it on demand. I'm not that person, but I also am a person who does not believe. I mean, I definitely have seen the ugly side of the harsh criticism of reality TV. I can't say that I completely agree with all of the content, but the only reason why I refuse to take an opposing stance to it is because I feel like if we had balance, that we wouldn't have such a strong opinion about how terrible it is. So, right, so if we had balance, like if we had a Cosby Show, for lack of a better term, a Scandal, and a Love and Hip Hop, you know, then, and I'm talking about good balance, not one Cosby Show and then one, you know, Love and Hip Hop. I feel like if we had a good, diverse amount of programming, then no one would notice that we are portrayed so poorly on so many shows. It's kind of like, so Mob Wives. I have turned my television to that once or twice, maybe at 3 a.m. when I'm writing a proposal, and I am floored by what I see, and that I never hear backlash on any social network of any source.
I do think that you. Well, first of all, you know that
their faces
but
cut
you
2
know
weeks
that
ago.
we run social media, specifically Twitter. So you're not going to see that kind of backlash on Twitter because we don't really care particularly about Mob Wives. But what I will say is that, you know, I think that, you know, remember now, The Godfather, when it came out, was picketed by the Italian American community. So it's the same thing that's going on with us now. There's a backlash happening, and I'm happy to see it. I think it's great that we're doing more scripted work, that more scripted shows are being greenlit, and not only being greenlit, but actually rejuvenating networks, as is Empire. Fox has not seen a hit like this in decades, and they're like, they don't even know what to do with themselves because Empire keeps breaking records.
Well, I think it's good for, I'm sorry, just to your point, I think it's good for television overall, not just Fox, that a scripted program is celebrating the kind of numbers that they're getting. That means that we'll see more of it and not a reliance on cheaper reality TV production.
From a business standpoint, this is absolutely stupid for Hollywood. Does not deserve to diversify more. You got by 2043, we have a majority population, majority minority. In 50 years, you have almost 60% of this country be people of color. It makes absolutely poor business sense to keep giving these same old stereotypes with what we see in movies and on TV.
Yeah. Well, speaking of business, you have to tell us about the future of print. I know you own a magazine, and Bevy, you've worked and started in print as well. So what does the future of black print as well as black media hold?
Well, I used to be editor of Emerge magazine. I run a news service now for the black newspapers, NNPA news service. I think print is going to be around. It's just how you view it. I mean, the skills are still the same, but the way we consume our news, and it's industry-wide, it's not just the black part. If you look at the daily newspapers, they used to give you your news. By the time you look at your daily newspaper, you already know what the news is. So it becomes what the perspective is. And that's the strength of the black press, is that perspective, and you get news there you can't get anywhere else. So it's a matter of how you make sure that you get on all these delivery devices. The skills and the need will still be there.
But Judge, do you think that the print will actually still exist in the same way? Like, I would think that, you know, I remember, you know, at Vibe when we started making the magazine smaller, and then the print run got smaller because online became bigger. So at this point, you know, I do agree with you. We need black media. We need things that speak specifically to us and really tell our stories and really from our voice. But I think that I'll probably get that information on, you know, via my iPad or, you know, on my phone. I don't know that I actually need to, the actual, I don't, the New York Times, I read it online. I subscribe to it online.
Yeah, I think it'll still exist in some form, but that's not how we get a major delivery. Mostly we do get it through our electronic device. I don't expect it to change, but I don't expect print to go away.
Will it kind of become vintage like 12-inch vinyl? where it's like a collector's item almost, and there's a very, very, very limited
I
run.
think that's a really interesting point because I know for me, whenever something iconic and epic happens, I go and I buy the actual paper
Because there's
because it's a
certain
collector's
brands-
item.
Right.
Or
know-
like when
yes,
you're
you're right.
featured in something and you want your parents want it,
Oh,
they're
yeah, I
not
have
going
to
to
go
say,
buy the
"Hey,
paper."
look
Right.
at this online." They're going
That
to go
doesn't
buy
exist for
10
them.
copies. Or anybody's parents, they take
Right.
that and my mother will take something and go pass it around to every one of her coworkers. But it's something about having that piece of
It
paper
is, no
in your
question.
hand where it's an experience more as much as it is, something that is informative.
But ultimately, without the advertising dollars and without people buying those papers, they will not be able to exist,
But
right?
that's the industry, again, that's the industry itself. See, the problem is nobody has figured it out.
No.
You know, all the money the New York Times, the Washington
Yeah.
Post put on it, they have not figured out how to monetize
Yeah.
it. Because what you would get for a page in a magazine or newspaper is enormous compared to what you would get online.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's such a business challenge.
Yeah, it is. And honestly, for me, I've always felt that it was just such a shame that the media and the advertising community undervalues the
Yep.
black dollars. It really does. I think it's atrocious that, and I'm not a fan of reality TV, but when you realize that VH1 is really trying to diversify their content because they have so much black content, so that's great for them because they get the numbers, but those numbers are largely black viewers, and those viewers are not worth as much as the white viewer. So they're now trying to put on all of these shows that have white cast members, white leads, because they're trying to get the bigger advertising dollar. And I think that's just abysmal.
Yeah, and see, this is what concerns me. What I'm worried about is what happens to black-owned media. When you look at BT, it was sold. You look at Essence, sold. You see Ebony on the ropes here.
Yeah.
It's one thing to say you're black media, but black-owned is a totally different
Yes,
thing.
it is.
But because of the numbers are there, you're seeing a lot of white-owned companies buying up black companies. And so you saw it in hair care, you saw it in entertainment, you see it in magazine. And I'm wondering down the road, will we own our own vehicles? And that's a major concern.
That's such an important point that he just made. And on my end, I feel like we can actually have a direct effect on that if we can convince actual African American talent to prioritize urban media as much as they prioritize mainstream media. Because if you approach it as a member of the community like it's less important, then you give the actual validation to mainstream publicists that it's okay to never grant urban media access to talent unless if it's someone that you're struggling with, someone who you think is developing. Then it's okay to use them, but then once they pass a certain crescendo, then it's like, oh no, we can't give you them anymore. And if we are going to do an urban press day, it's Essence, Ebony, Jet, and that's it, or YBF and Nicole Bitchy, and then that's it. And our African American talent has a lot to do with co-signing the death of urban media, because once they make it to a certain level, it's okay to treat this media outlet like they're not worth the advertising dollars, they're not worth the press day, they're not worth the importance.
I always say this, when I'm dealing with my publicist, I always tell them, a feature in Ebony for me is just as valuable as a feature in the New York Times.
Absolutely.
Like I don't.
And they have to live
They
that.
do have the value.
They have to live
and
it.
not wait till they get in trouble.
Right.
And when they get in
Absolutely.
trouble,
Or when they
what did Bill
that's a lot of
Cosby say?
times
I
they
knew
just-
Bill Cosby because uttered the word black press until he got in trouble.
absolutely.
And a lot of times that's the only time you see us in the mainstream media. So do you think that the mainstream media treats African Americans and people of color fairly?
Of course
Absolutely
not.
not.
But that's never going to change. We can't make our decisions based on how they're going to act, because there's not if you have no economic empowerment, you have no voice. It's just that simple. So if you don't pull in the same ad dollars as the mainstream media outlet, they do not have to care about if you're being treated fairly or not. But in our community, in our circle, what we can do is at least we prioritize mainstream and urban media outlets on the same level, so that no one can say these black viewers are not worth the same dollar. They're worth 65 cents of this dollar.
Right.
But if you bring me some programming with a mainstream cast, then I'll give you the full dollar.
Yeah.
That's not going to work. But right now we are enabling that process. And publicists on the marketing and PR, and people who have to fight for an urban press day or for an urban media outlet, that is the story of our lives. We're fighting constantly, and it doesn't help when I'm a lone man on this side, while the mainstream team, the mainstream publicists, and the African American talent is over there saying, why should I do this? It's just not right.
All right. Wow. Well, unfortunately, we're out of time. I wish we could keep going. We could talk about this all day. Thank you all so much for being here and bringing us that great conversation.
Thank you.
All right. Now we need you to share this web series with your social media friends and followers, and let's continue the solution session using the hashtag #SaveOurCities. Now, please get involved. The State of Black America web series has been presented by AT&T. Thank you, AT&T, for your continued support for the National Urban League. We'd also like to thank Comcast for their production support of the State of Black America web series. Together, we are empowering communities and changing lives. Now, don't forget to follow me on social media at Mr. Shannon Lanier and at Arise TV 360. And for more information on the State of Black America and to purchase the book, visit the National Urban League's website at www.stateofblackamerica.org.